Hello, this is Izzy, and we are continuing our study of the Yoga Sutras. So, our last sutra that we covered was Sutra 5. And in Sutra 5, we talked about our positive thoughts. And if you've missed any of these, please go back and watch them. In your online course, you have that audio that's listed at the top. Hey, Eric. So in that online course, you have the audio listed at the top. You've got the PDF, and then you will have the video of this lecture. And so with this, how this works, if you are new to it, so this is our live video, so feel free to comment, ask questions, um, you know, joke around with me. It keeps it interesting. I try to keep as much lightness in these as possible because we can get really serious with this stuff. There's my alarm to make sure that I come on here. So we want to keep a joyful place where we don't get too serious, but we also don't get too free with it. So again, in yoga and in Eastern philosophy, we often talk about this concept of attachment. And attachment meaning that we get so like raveled up, um, that we become entangled to the point where it causes suffering. And that is the non-attachment that we refer to a lot within that. And we also want to make sure that we're not too attached to our thoughts and our thoughts about things, because ultimately, when we are attached, even emotionally attached, it's the thoughts on repeat that often keep us there, thinking that we don't have the ability to change them when we do. We have the ability to change any of our thoughts. And we do that by rewriting the subconscious. And the subconscious is not bad. The subconscious is there to make us more efficient, to protect us, to keep us safe, and to help us blend in with our norm of culture so that again we can be safe. And the mind does what it thinks we want it to do. Whether that's subconsciously, like maybe subconsciously we're saying, I want to get a better job, I want to get a better job. But our subconscious mind says, no, stay where you're at, that's safe. New job equals unsafe, right? So, who do we have? Hi, Tara. Is it Tara, Tara? Sometimes I know it's pronounced different. It's hard when we're on these lives, right? um, so, with that being said, I'm also a hypnotherapist and I do work a lot with the subconscious. And it's so beautiful how much the Yoga Sutras teach us how to rewrite and reprogram our subconscious. And essentially, when we follow the Yoga Sutras, we are able to clear our mind just as we would do in one rapid session of hypnotherapy. But even in a hypnotherapy session, we still want the daily practice. We still want the self growth, the self journey. And that's why the Yoga Sutras are so important, because it reminds us of what is necessary for a healthy mind. Not only for a healthy mind in meditation, but a healthy mind for life and how we show up in relationships, in our work, and whether our vibration is high or low. And I think we can all kind of relate to that, right? When we're in a low vibration, we typically just feel a little more sluggish. And when we're in a high vibration, it's normally this like excitement. And we fluctuate through this all day. but we should also be able to recognize when we're in that vibration and allow ourselves to switch that and change that and be in control instead of our mind being in control of us. And that is the essence of yoga. Yoga is allowing ourselves that self growth through development of ourselves and control of the mind. And so we are on Yoga Sutra 7 of Book 1 today. And this one is the truth is always true. That there are ways of logic that we should be acquiring our truth. And the reason why this is important to recognize what is truth and how do we gain truth is because we want to look at our thoughts and say, is that true? Are the thoughts that have been programmed in our mind from things people have told us as a child, as an adult, knowledge or perception that we've acquired through our experiences? We need to examine our thoughts and ask ourselves, is that true? Because often we are not carrying just our own luggage, but we are also carrying the luggage that people have been packing our suitcases for us, and we don't know what's in them, and we're just carrying them. And so we want to be able to open up the suitcase and go through the contents and say, like, what is this? This isn't even mine. I didn't realize that. Or trying something on and saying, this no longer fits me. Why am I still carrying it around? And I love how in this translation, it says your mental wardrobe. And we have to go through each thought and really examine it in this way of recognizing what is truth. And so that's how this sutra starts out, is by telling us how we gain truth. And it says we gain truth by 3 modes. First is valid knowledge. Second is interference. And third is a reliable authority. And so valid knowledge is us seeing something for ourselves. We've seen it. There's not really much room for interpretation. The sky is blue. Yes, we can all see it and see that that's true. Direct perception. 2 is by interference. Maybe we see smoke, and so we deduct that there is a fire. Maybe we can't be smoke. We can't see the fire. We can't really see what's going on, but we use the majority of things that we've picked together, pulled together, and we deduct that that is true. And so if someone was to give you cow's milk, you would assume it's from a cow. But the third one is a reliable authority. So if someone tells you something, you have not seen it, you have not really any proof on it, but you can trust that person, right? We're trusting that person. And in this case, the Yoga Sutra says that usually we refer back to holy scriptures when it comes to truth. And I know I used a very simple metaphor on the interference or the deduction, but really thinking about the truths that are in our own mind, such as we shouldn't kill, right? Like we can deduct why we can see it in our society, why that should be true. However, we also see people that say, well, in some cases we should, right? But all of us come back to going, well, pretty much every holy scripture says we shouldn't kill. So maybe we should actually listen to that, since every holy scripture says it, right? And of course, then we all have our own interpretations of this. And that's why a lot of yogis take this to the full extent in that first ethic of ours in nonviolence and non-harm. And everyone's going to have their own value spin on this. So, Eric, you'll appreciate this metaphor. So, when it comes to eating animals, some people choose to only eat animals that have not been harmed, that have lived a good life, that come from certain sources. And then for other people, they see this as no, like absolutely not. Like that all of it is harm. And other people in other cases see that like that isn't harm. It doesn't count in their perception. And that's why it's so important for us to actually look at that too and say, like, what is it that actually aligns with my values? Am I defaulting back to my society's vision? And if I was to really read something, a holy scripture of any kind, whichever one you choose, does what you believe, your action and the scripture all align? And with that, it says, we should look at these presentations to us and say, what is the basic truth in the presentation? And so truth can be presented through some vehicle. And if you study any Eastern philosophy, this word vehicle is used often. And vehicle means the mode or method in which something is delivered. And, like it can come to you on a horse and buggy, it can come to you in a limo, it can come to you in a Porsche, like whatever vehicle it comes to you in, it's getting to you. And in some ways it may be more relatable to others. Like for some people, they're like, yes, I want it to me brought to me old fashioned horse and buggy would be most appealing to me, and I want to understand it that way. Other people are like, deliver me the message in a limo. That's the way I want it. And then others, maybe they want an eco-friendly car and they want it delivered in a way that's going to make sense to them. And this is saying that like we've seen adaptations made to any holy scripture throughout the ages, that as people evolve and as people are able to grasp different concepts, that the vehicle, the mode, the translation, the way it's presented changes. And so he feels it's important to address that as well. Specifically, though, if you know anything about Buddhism and Eastern philosophy, there is very large debates within those religious cultures for the vehicle that things are delivered in. And that can even be true with yoga itself. Okay, but it says like the truth can never really be changed because truth is always the same. Just as an individual might wear gym clothes to the gym, or a suit to a wedding, or ski clothes to go skiing. It would be odd if you, and uncomfortable almost for the viewers and for the individual, if you were to wear the wrong clothes to the wrong event. And so he goes on to say, like, please find validation with anything someone tells you. And this comes back to a very yogi view of, if someone is presenting something to you, you don't go, oh, well, I don't know about that. Like, I'm going to have to check out the facts. No, you would be like, okay, well, that's a great opinion. And thank you for sharing that with me. Like, that's something new. I hadn't thought about that. And we allow ourselves to hear people, but we don't have to accept what they say. Like, we always want to honor the other person, but just because someone tells us something doesn't mean that we have to accept it. And so if someone was to tell you that the only way that you can practice yoga is you have to do 10 sun salutations a day, And if you don't do your 10 sun salutations a day, you're not going to go to the next life, or you're not going to go to heaven, or you know some people might go, oh, really? Okay, I better do my 10 sun salutations a day. And then they feel guilty if they don't. That sounds silly, but we do that so much with other thoughts, right? We do this with so much like subconscious programming. And I often talk about this with like money mindset, right? Like some people deep down, because they've always been told that you can't have money unless you work hard. That if you become rich, you're going to be like those snooty people that lived across the street from so and so. You don't want to be like those people. Or that people that are wealthy have had to do bad things to get wealthy. So we may not consciously think these things, but deep down we might still have these beliefs, and we need to examine our thoughts throughout the day to see what is it that we're really agreeing with. Do we find ourselves talking about happiness but often complaining? Do we find ourselves talking about health but not eating healthy or going to the gym or exercising? Um, do we find ourselves saying one thing and doing another? Because that is often the first sign of subconscious programming, that carrying the suitcase that someone else, many people have packed for you, and you have not gone through the contents. Maybe it was someone told you to feel guilty about something that you've done, and that you should be punishing yourself for the rest of your life because you did a certain thing, you acted a certain way, you have a past, whatever it might be. And do you really believe that's true? If you had a friend in front of you, would you offer them the same advice that you're acting on yourself? And that is where I think any coach, any yogi who really studies these self development ways will tell you, like, if you want to really get the advice that you need, oh, it's all within you, it's already there. Go find someone in a similar situation as you and help them. And the words coming out of your mouth that you are intending for them will often be the words that you need to be putting into practice as well. And so, in fact, there's many stories of that's what Gandhi would do. The Gandhi would, there's this one story particularly, I'll tell you. So this mother came to Gandhi and she said, please tell my son to stop eating so much sugar. It's really destroying his health, and his health is really suffering, and I really need him to stop eating all of the sugar. Can you please tell him, because he won't listen to me? I think we can all relate at some point. We say, like, Mom, and my kids do it to me. Um, and so she brought her son to him. He agreed. And he said, okay, your mom wants me to tell you not to eat any sugar. So I need you to come back in 2 weeks. And they're like, okay. And they came back in 2 weeks. And he looked at the boy and he said, I need you to stop eating sugar. And the mother said, I don't understand. Why couldn't you tell him that last time? And he said, because 2 weeks ago I was still eating sugar, and I wasn't going to tell him to stop eating sugar until I had stopped eating it myself. And so this allows us that opportunity to go, okay, am I really doing everything that I offer other people? And we want to lead by example. And we do that by examining our thoughts. But to really change our mind, to change our thoughts, to change how our brain works, it would be so nice to just be like, okay, you know what? Let's just take out all the old thoughts. We're just going to dump them, get rid of them, and let me just start anew. That would be nice. But not all of them are bad, and we don't want to get rid of all of them all at the same time. Because, for one, it's kind of like recycling. You would put the compost in one pile, the papers in one pile, the plastic in one pile. It needs to be sorted. So one, it needs to be sorted. Two, there might be things that really are good and you want to keep them. Three, it's a healing process to go through those in the first place, and you really get to discover yourself and really become stronger in what you believe. And then four, the mind clings. So the mind clings to things. I don't know if you've ever moved or something happened and you used to have a particular object and you're often always thinking about, like, I know I had that. I don't know why I got rid of it, or I had that and I don't know what happened to it. And you've gone like, and life has been fine and dandy, but you're always racking your mind about that one item. And so that's an example of the mind clings. And we want to free ourselves from this. And so if you think about like guilt, shame, blame, complaining, like all that stuff, if we want to release ourselves from those things, the clinging, then we need to go through our mental wardrobe. And he goes to say, like, the mind can be tricked. The mind is a tool. It is not us. We are not our mind. You change your mind, you change everything. So in order to trick the mind, to work with the mind, as we talked about in the Yoga Sutra 5, we overwhelm ourselves with positive, it'll push out the negative. But in this way, I don't know if you've ever wanted to clean your closet out. And it would be so nice to just grab everything in the closet, go take it to Goodwill, and then just go shopping and buy all new clothes. How great would that be? But often what would happen, and you might have had this happen to you, and if you have, please comment, because I know this has happened to me. You pile your car up full of stuff to take to Goodwill, and as you're unloading it, you're going, oh no, that one, it still has the tags on it, or that one, oh, I really did like that. I didn't get to try it on. I should try it on. And before you know it, you're like grabbing everything back, and you're like, never mind, I need to go through all of this. I'll come back later. And then you feel like you just went through your closet, and then you drove there, and like suddenly you've wasted all this time and no work was actually done. And in fact, you probably have a bigger mess than what you started with. So we want to get into the closet, and we want to take out one item at a time, and we want to try it on and allow ourselves to really decide, is this in the go pile, is this in the keep pile, or maybe I need to try this on again in a couple days. And we can do that with our thoughts, but we have to be able to examine the thought. So when a situation arises, when we start to react in a certain way, question yourself. Where did this thought come from? Why do I do this? Who taught me this? Who taught me to think this way? Why do I think this way? Is this important to me? And to really spend time with that thought. Now, in that self, it can be challenging, right? And this is where it's so great to utilize those yogic ethics to go through. And if you need something to like really focus on and examine the thoughts, to go through those first. So maybe you start with the concept, that first one, asteya, nonviolence, and ask yourself how violence and nonviolence shows up in your day. Whether you have violent thoughts to yourself, violent thoughts about others, and violence not as in like a physical harm, but also like an emotional and mental harm as well. So do we like put ourselves down? Do we sacrifice our peace? Do we expect others to sacrifice their peace for us? And maybe it's just saying little things to yourself like, oh, I'm so stupid. That's a harmful thought. And so to really examine, and maybe you spend a day, a week, just examining asteya. And then the other one is truthfulness. Are we being true to ourselves? And as I've spoke, that alignment with values and our words and our actions. And so allowing yourself, if you need a starting place other than just examining yourself all throughout the day, you could always utilize those. All right. And then another is in meditation, we also often say to give the mind a bone. And, mom does this with a baby. She doesn't do all of it at one time. Like if you were to sit a plate in front of a baby and say, eat all this, and it's something they don't like, they're going to be like, ew, yuck, gross. But if we take a little bite at a time while the mom's telling a baby a story, and then just this, oh, just a little more, just a little more. And before we know it, we've done a large amount. So when I say this, don't be overwhelmed. Like, oh my gosh, examine every thought. Wow. Start with something that feels doable. Because if it's overwhelming, you won't do it. Because your mind will find a way to keep you away from doing it because that sounds unsafe, it sounds stressful, it sounds scary. The mind wants to cling. And as we've talked about in the earlier verses, the ego, the I, likes comfort. The ego, the I, likes safety, and it wants to keep you safe. And so, in order for us to find the change without overwhelming ourselves or putting ourselves into fear or stress response, we must do this in little ways. Be sneaky with your mind. Be loving and kind to your mind, because by doing this in a harsh way, you won't get anywhere. You have to approach yourself with love, grace, gratitude. And once you find a thought that is not yours, you just tell that thought, this isn't my thought. I appreciate this thought and I recognize that someone gave this to me in an effort to try to keep me safe, but it's not mine. This is old programming and I no longer need it. And then you release it, and you can release it in a sense that you allow yourself to transform it and release it, or you can send it back to the person who gave it to you. And there's a beautiful practice that's, I'm not sure if this one's actually in the Yoga Sutra. It might be in book 4. But this idea of transforming energy. And if you had a giant energy bubble around you and anything that came in, negativity, if it comes in, that's okay. Let it come in, because your light is so strong and so bright. It's going to transform that negative energy. And it says there's like 2 layers. So the negativity won't actually get to you. It transforms in the process of getting to you. And then you share the love with it and you reshape it, or you reinvigorate it, you change the darkness into light, and then you send it back out into the world so that you become this filter of love to send out into the world. And so I hope that helps. I hope that sheds some light and gives you some wisdom to think on for the day. We will be continuing tomorrow. And if you have not gotten enrolled into the Studying the Yoga Sutras course, you can do that at FigLeaf.Yoga.com. And you'll see the mini course there for the Yoga Sutras. And within that is an audio recording, a PDF, and then these videos will be being posted as well. So thank you so much for joining me, and I'll see you tomorrow night at 8:30 Eastern Standard Time as well. If you're enjoying this course, please share it with someone else, and let's keep this positivity and empowerment going and sharing and help change the world one person at a time, starting with ourselves. Namaste. Bye. Thank you all.